It's about understanding who you are, not who somebody else is compared to you. It's how you are and working with how you work.
Once we release those core traumas, whatever they may be, it allows us to open up to more for ourselves.
And wherever there is imbalance, there is inner struggle, inner fight, there is for certain one can expect that the inner turmoil will present itself.
There's a huge amount of evidence to show that alternative medicines work extremely well and can work alongside conventional medicine.
You can't make any type of change if you aren't first aware of where you're at and where you want to go. And awareness is definitely key.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's discussion. You may have been watching our videos, but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have gained value from our conversations, from our channel, it would be so appreciated for us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now and even give us a like. What that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it also allows us to bring in even more guests for you to listen to. And you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's wonderful panel discussion.
Hello and welcome everyone. We are in the panel discussion today presented by Sacred You, a community dedicated to empowering women. And the topic for today's panel is Healing the Spirit, Holistic Approaches to Wellbeing. My name is Helen Prince and I'm very happy to be here as your facilitator today. Now, we are very fortunate to have an inspiring group of women on the panel today. Each one of these ladies is a powerhouse in their field. They bring decades of expertise in self-healing, in consciousness, and in transformative practices. And their diverse insights are going to leave you enlightened and empowered. So before we get into our topic, I'd like to just quickly introduce you to all of these lovely ladies. First of all, we have Angelie. Now, Angelie is a dynamic host of a TV show called Unveil Your Brilliance and Take the Lead. She's a best-selling author of Leader Mindset Activation. She is the founder of Oversight Global and has more than 20 years experience in healthcare and entrepreneurship. She inspires leaders to boost confidence, impact, and tackle global consciousness crisis. So welcome, Angelie. I'm really looking forward to getting your perspective on this topic today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, next we have Marina. Marina is a self-love coach. She is a clinical hypnotherapist, an NLP expert. She is the author of Dream a Better Dream and Your GPS to Happiness. Marina empowers lasting transformation and purpose. So welcome to the panel discussion today, Marina. It's lovely to have you here, and I'm looking forward to getting your perspective as well.
Oh, I'm excited being here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Next, we have Charlotte. Charlotte is an author, herbalist, and healer with over 30 years of experience. She is a graduate of the School of Herbal Medicine. She helps clients break patterns causing ill health and frustration, and she helps them to unlock prosperous living. Who doesn't want that? So welcome, Charlotte. It is wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
And then last but not least, we have Denise. Denise is a self-healing coach. She empowers people with tools and knowledge to transform their life. So she helps you live with purpose, joy, and meaning while sharing the gift of self-healing with others. So welcome, Denise. Looking forward to seeing your perspective as well.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic, ladies. Let's get into it. And what I want to do is I want to start off, Denise, I'll direct this question to you. What does holistic well-being mean in simple terms? And how can it support our emotional and spiritual health?
Knowing yourself, It begins with me. It begins with you. It begins a self-exploration of who you are, why you are, how you are, where you are. It's taking on all the elements of your senses to know who you are. What lifts you, what drags you down, what triggers you, what sends you into overdrive, underdrive, the holistic of everything that you are. This is the key to know who you are. And by knowing who you are, you know how you operate. You know all sides of you, the black side, the dark side, the grey sides, the magnificent sides, everything about yourself. And that's the key to bring yourself out of everything that's going on within you to allow you to live a fulfilled and thriving and loving life for yourself that expands out into everywhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's about understanding who you are, not who
Mhm.
somebody else is compared to you. It's how you are and working with how you work.
Yeah.
And we all have these unique qualities, don't we?
Yeah, and we take on the responsibility of everybody else, but it's coming back and taking the responsibility of ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's where the power lies. When we
Absolutely.
leave it over to somebody else, we are powerless.
Yeah.
When we embrace who we are,
Yeah.
then we've got the power to make changes, to
yes.
create what we want in our lives.
And it's the greatest
Lovely.
gift. Yeah, it's the greatest gift we can give the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Charlotte, what does holistic well-being, how would you explain that to someone who's maybe not heard of that term before?
I think I'd explain it by saying that it's important to consider what we need as human beings. So, of course, we're used to thinking emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. But what about financial health? What about relationship health? What about being aligned or having a life where you can actually align with your core values? So I think that it's all about taking a person's life as a whole. What do they need? What do they need to thrive?
Absolutely. I love that. And we are so individual. What I need is going to be different to what you need, different to what Marina needs, different to what Angeline needs, different to what Charlotte needs, or to what Denise needs. So it's looking at the person in front of you, isn't it? And helping that person. Beautiful. Angeline, what do you feel are some of the common myths around holistic health that might stop people from giving it a try?
I think some of the misconceptions or myths around holistic health is before I got into understanding what holistic well-being is, I would think that it's woo, that term that people use when they don't necessarily believe or understand something or think that it's not for them. So I think that that's definitely something that's still out there, that misconception, that myth that if you don't understand something or you things like meditation or yoga or spiritual and energetic practices. Some would consider that woo, especially if they're coming from where I came from, which was the corporate environment, and feeling like that's not something that you need or that is really needed because you feel like you're doing fine at the time. But like I said, I came from that and I am now part of the holistic woo woo world and I am happy and proud to be part of it. That's what I would say is probably one of the biggest myths out there.
Absolutely. So how did you come from being corporate into woo-woo? Because that would have taken a different mindset. So what helped you make that bridge?
Yeah, it was actually during I was on my career track of being in my first healthcare management position, and I was having a really hard time finding my footing. I was dealing with all of these emotions and internal struggles that I had never had to deal with before. And so I started searching for how could I deal with these types of things that I was feeling, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, imposter syndrome. I was also the stress and having to have all those dealing with all those struggles was starting to affect me physically as well. I started to develop migraines and anxiety and different types of physical ailments. And so it was really when all of that stuff, just all that negativity and all that stress and anxiety really just built up to where I had this pivotal moment with a division of my team where I just really had a blow up during a team meeting. And that was really my wake up call that I needed to sit down and ask myself these questions, because these things that I had going on that I didn't know how to deal with were turning me into a different person. And so that's really where I embarked on my self-discovery and self-consciousness journey. And that's how I really started to make my way into holistic well-being.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We have to get to that point where we're open to looking at different things, and we all get there in our own way. But I think that's important, though. You have to be open to exploring and just seeing, okay, maybe it's not, we don't know what we don't know. Maybe it is different to what I perceive it to be. And I'm at a point now where I have to make something change. And yeah,
Absolutely.
great. Marina, what about you? What have you come across with being the biggest blocks for people wanting or getting into the whole holistic side of things?
What I have observed is that, first of all, our thoughts drive our emotions, our feelings. So it starts truly with the thoughts that we think, and the thoughts that most people think are negative thoughts, and they start usually around the self. So we're splitting the self into many parts. We're seeing ourselves not as holistic, the whole, but rather as parts fighting one another. And wherever there is imbalance, there is inner struggle, inner fight, there is for certain, one can expect that the inner turmoil will present itself in not only in our outer world, the environment, but also in our body's outer world. It starts with the auras and then it travels back to the physical body. And we can guarantee ourselves that we will see the results we don't want to see showing up in our bodies, which is the wake-up call. Hello, maybe it's time to change something. And very often it is approached with doubt and fear, and to do the uncertain thing, which is changing the mindset, because we could take a pill and we could just deal with it and get it over with, but it doesn't take away the root cause of our disease. So that's
Absolutely.
what I've observed.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we work on those symptoms, yes, you can get some relief from the symptoms, but like you said, it's not the root cause that's stopping the symptom from resurfacing in the same way, or perhaps even in a different way.
Right.
So while we're just with you, Marina, can you share some examples of how holistic practices have transformed either your own life or one of your clients?
I have two wonderful stories of success. I had, particularly this one, I think would be fitting for tonight, is a lady, because I addressed the fear and doubt. She had an issue with, it's called dental resorption. Her body absorbed her 4 lower teeth, and they were slated to be removed. They were extracted, they were supposed to be extracted. And to be clear, she went to, I believe, 3 different dentists who took the x-rays and confirmed, yes, must be taken out. She came to me and I said, first of all, the deadline that she gave me was 2 weeks. That was too short to make major changes. So I said, at least we need 6 weeks just to play it safe. So I started working with her, hypnosis and NLP techniques of letting go of the stressors in her life. And wouldn't you know it, she had 4 major stressors and 4 teeth. Is there correlation? I wonder. So she wasn't really sure that it was working, but she worked with me. She did her stuff. She went, and unbeknownst to me, she went to the dentist and she called me and she said, you won't believe it, but the first dentist said 3 of the 4 teeth are in perfect order, cannot understand what was wrong, sent me to a specialist to take another x-ray because the 4th one was iffy. And he said, took a different x-ray, said all 4 teeth are absolutely perfect condition. Now she started doubting whether there was anything wrong to begin with. So in other words, you couldn't win. First there was doubt, about whether this therapy would work. Then there was was it real? Yes, it was. Of course it was real. So yes, it can work. Absolute miracles. I helped a lady remove a tumor of 7 by 6.5 centimeter tumor that she had for 7 years, and it
Wow.
disappeared. So those are real stories, and they were proven through X-rays and MRI. So not made up. So yes, it does work.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, you just need to be open to it and be a willing participant as well, because that's going to speed up the process where you don't have that resistance of that doubt coming in as well. Deepa, who has just joined us as someone who's just going to be watching the discussion, she's just made a comment saying, I love this conversation, having teeth problems since a few years. So perhaps you two might want to connect, or Deepa, you might want to reach out to Marina after this. And you're very welcome to put your camera on, Deepa, if you want to as well, and raise your hand if you do have questions as we're going through. They are incredible stories, Marina. Thank you so much for sharing them. Denise, what about you? Have you got some real life examples of how holistic practices have transformed either your own life or somebody else's life?
Yeah, it's so beautiful to see people transform. One lady, a client that I was working with, she had breast cancer, and breasts are all about nurturing. And it was just taking her through the healing process and finding the core. And the core of our healing comes from when we're childhood. I like to go back to the first event of where everything happens for us that causes disease in our bodies. It was finding that. And then after that, it's just the layers that she could recognize where the non-nurturing in her life was happening, and being able to feel through that, hold herself in love and compassion without judgment, and seeing it heal within herself. So it was just a beautiful journey. It took I think it was about 10 to 12 weeks, and just seeing her unfold for her to carry on her journey in a new way as well within herself. Because once we release those core traumas, whatever they may be, it allows us to open up to more for ourselves. And yeah, for her, it was a big life changing. And that's what healing does for
Absolutely.
us. Yeah.
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 Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love these stories because what they do is they give people hope. And when you have hope, anything is possible. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. What an amazing result, Denise. Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, it's her learning how to look after herself and follow those threads for herself to be able to heal herself as well. So it's not just a once off. It's
Yes,
I get to do
absolutely.
that, and then she gets to share that with anybody else who wants to do that for herself, for themselves. So it's just a beautiful transaction and transformation.
I love that because that's true empowerment, isn't it? Giving people the tools to be able to do what they need to do for themselves, where yes, they might need help to get going or get to a certain point, but then having the ability to be able to then pick the ball up and keep going with it. That's quite incredible. Amazing. Thank you, Denise. Charlotte, how about you? Have you got some stories that you'd like to share?
As a herbalist, yes, I've treated a lot of physical conditions and situations. However, let's talk about one that's more about wishes, desires in terms of career and things like that. I used to work in Asia quite a lot before 2020, and in Japan particularly. And because I would go a few times a year, sometimes I would see a client just once or twice, and then I may not see them again at all, or I may not see them for another year until I went back. And I remember one client came in and was really miserable. So her relationship wasn't going very well. She was really unhappy in her career. And we gave healing. I gave her some herbs, prescribed some herbs. And I remember seeing her 2 years later. And that 2 years, and it was only, I'd only seen her once, but 2 years later, she came back and she just said everything changed over that next 6 months. So she actually did divorce, but she was in another relationship and she was incredibly happy with that. And from being a nurse, she'd gone more into alternatives and more of a holistic approach to healing. She took that instead. So yes, I've seen a lot of changes, and sometimes, yes, you need several sessions or several treatments. And as Denise was saying, it is all about teaching yourself how to heal yourself as well. So we're just supporting that. We're supporting, as practitioners, we're supporting that healing journey for a client. And so they do begin to become self-sufficient, which is wonderful.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that you would all be doing an element of mindset work because we know that it's our thoughts and our beliefs and our behaviors, and all of that is so important as well. So that would be tools that I imagine you're all using to help people, as you say, keep going in that direction, enforce the boundaries. It's easy to set the boundaries. It's the enforcement where we fall down, isn't it? So giving them the tools like that is also going to help empower them to reclaim their power. Fantastic, Charlotte. I'm going to ask Anjali to share some things, and then I want to come back and ask you, because of your herbalist connection, the next question I really would love your perspective on. But before we get to that, Anjali, what are some stories that you've had where you've helped either yourself or clients using holistic methods?
Yeah, so I'll share a couple with you pretty quick since I am a little bit different than modality wise from the other ladies here. I'm a leadership development coach. And so I deal with a lot of women in terms of their career or business. And so a success story that I can share with you is one of the first clients that I had was a healthcare manager at the time. And she was really struggling with her own mindset and being able to successfully engage and motivate her team. And so and working together for a few months, she was able to really, she was really at the edge where she was dealing with so much internally that anything would trigger her and set her off. I would get text messages in the middle of the night saying that she is resigning, that she's moving somewhere else. So she was really struggling, but being able to really help her to become self-aware of who she really is and also why certain things trigger her, we were able to get her to a point to where she was doing wonderful and confident, and she felt really good in herself, and she was able to work with her team successfully and engage and motivate and inspire them. And then she went on to further her career. Within 2 years of us working together, she was able to switch careers and get promoted 4 times and triple her income. So that's a success
Wow,
story in regards to that. Yeah. And then for
that's
me, I
fantastic. Can
thank
I just,
you. And
something that you mentioned there, I think is really key, is you talked about you got her to become aware.
mhm.
Awareness is so important for any sort of change. Could you just maybe expand on that a little bit about awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. So how I actually approach helping and supporting others is that I really focus on what all really starts with you. So in terms of leadership, it starts with you mastering your self-leadership before you can effectively and consciously lead others. So like you're saying, it really does start with us in terms of whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And self-awareness and self-consciousness, I found for myself and in working with others, is really key because you can't make any type of change if you aren't first aware of where you're at and where you want to go. And awareness is definitely key, like you said.
Absolutely. And you wanted to share another story, another
Oh,
success
yeah.
story?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to share a personal success story of how I'm growing in my self development and self awareness and really understanding how we are holistic beings and not just, we're not just our body, we're not just our mind, which is the two main components that most people are aware of, but they're really not aware of their energetic, spiritual, or even fully aware of their emotional component. But when we start to understand that we are encompassed of several different components and that it really takes maintaining the health and alignment and harmony and balance of all of them in order to really be optimal in our health and being, and understanding that I was diagnosed in 2011 with an autoimmune disease, a form of autoimmune arthritis that really was traumatizing and really changed my life. But after exploring holistic healing for myself, I was able to come off all of the potent medications that I had been put on and told that I needed to be on, or else my joints and my bones were going to deteriorate to a point to where I'd be crippled. And I was able to get off all of those medications and officially get my autoimmune disease to go into remission, since they say there's no real cure for it. But anyway, I've been
But
healthy and
it's
happy for several
disappeared.
years. Exactly. I have it no more. So,
That's fantastic.
well, thank
Absolutely
you.
fantastic. Now, my next question, I want to bring this one to Charlotte because you've got that herbalist background. How do ancient traditions and modern science work together to support holistic healing?
I think we're lucky because we have a lot of clinical research on alternative medicines. That's essential oils, herbs, Reiki, Qigong, acupuncture. So we know that, for example, Qigong is very useful for reducing anxiety, but it also can affect our DNA and also protein synthesis, for example. We know that they've done a lot of studies on Reiki, with Reiki trials, and also with acupuncture, and they're so good. Those modalities are so good at reducing anxiety, also reducing pain and things like that. There was one experiment or clinical trial where they used just a single dose of a herb called Passiflora incarnata, and they used that before molar extractions, coming back to dentistry, and they found that it actually really decreased anxiety in those people who were just about to have these molar extractions. So yes, there's a huge amount of evidence to show that alternative medicines work extremely well and can work alongside conventional medicine. And I think that there is more of an openness to, for example, refer on. For example, say you are a conventional practitioner, you are more I think some of them are now more likely to refer to an acupuncturist, for example, to help their patient deal with pain. So yes, it's an exciting area, and there is so much evidence to show that they can work alongside each other. And I think that conventional medicine expects a body of evidence. It expects scientific verification, but it's there. So it's a bright future for both of them working together.
Absolutely. And I love that you're saying that conventional medicine is also referring people on to the non-traditional, because there's not just one thing, there's often a combination of things that we need. And having that open-mindedness, I think, from the traditional side is really fantastic, that we're coming full circle, because we used to be just all herbs and plants and knowing how to heal yourself. And then we went a little bit too far over into the medical side of it. But I think having that balance is fantastic.
I think also, take an example, chamomile. I mean, chamomile, I'm sure we've all drunk it. Whether we like it or not is another matter. Some people think it tastes absolutely awful. However, in 2016, they did a random control trial using chamomile tea, just chamomile tea. And half the cohort were the control, and then half were given the chamomile tea 3 times a day. But what they found was the chamomile, after 6 months, they did the trials for 6 months, it actually significantly helped GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder.
Wow.
And so a lot of the herbs actually work equally as well as the conventional therapies. So I think, again, this gives us great scope to use both together and integrate both sides of medicine.
Yeah, it's fantastic that people have the options, because not everyone wants to go onto pharmaceuticals. because often they will then cause another symptom that you need another pill for. So it's fantastic that we've got these options of natural alternatives. Marina, how do you find having those more ancient traditions, the holistic practices, how do you see them working alongside more traditional approaches?
I see them working along. I believe that when we use them alongside, the results can be fabulous. And what I mean by that, in the 70s, I believe Dr. Simonton started with the hypnotherapy for cancer patients, because he realized and he observed that very often, most of the time, there was significant amounts of low energy, low mood, certain negative behaviors and habits that brought on the cancer. So he did not take away the chemo, but he added to that the hypnotherapy, the changing of the mind, the changing of the behaviors, the uplifting of the energy, because in the end, we are all energy. So when you change your energies and your frequencies, you can work along the others. Perhaps it would be good to also try it on its own, but obviously in this particular program, they weren't going to have the negative effects of their dying. I wish they had used chemo, but it did work. And I've observed myself that, and I'm sure everyone in this room and everyone who's listening, that when our energy is low, when our thoughts are down, we feel low and we allowing our immune system to come down, and then we get sick. So when we do the opposite, and when we take good care of our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our thoughts, the words we speak, then we can have really very good health, and we flourish in everything we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our thoughts are incredibly powerful, and they have a huge effect on our body.
Yeah.
Mm. We've got a question from Deepa in the chat. I'm just going to read it out, and I invite all of you to give your perspective on this. So her question is, I want to ask about healing trust. After trust is broken, especially when it's dealing with receiving a treatment or service, how can you start trusting again? Does anyone want to offer their opinion on trust when it comes to healing? Marina?
Without trust, if we don't trust anything, we can't continue living. In my opinion, we have to believe in trust. That's most broken people choose not to trust, not to have faith, not to have certainty that there is something good happening for us, to us. And if I no longer trust that, then for me, life is not worth living anymore. That does not mean that we don't do our due diligence, our research, and check things out. Yes, research is really important. But in the end, trust goes back to trusting ourselves and our intuition, our gut feelings. And the purer we are, the more connected we are with the one, with the whole, and the more open we are, the better our intuition is. And I would trust my intuition every time. Whenever I have not listened and trusted, usually it was a mistake. I should have.
Yeah, it's really important to listen to that inner voice. If something has happened though, and that trust is broken, do you have a suggestion or a tip for how do you start to mend that trust? How do you start to quiet those fears that if I do this, something bad is going to happen again?
We can just as well ask ourselves, when I do this, what if something good happens? Because we have always the two scenarios. I can look at the dark side and I can stay stuck in the dark side, which is coincidentally what I did to myself last night, I recently widowed, and I started to get stuck in my thoughts. And I noticed that I didn't really feel very good about anything in life. And I said to myself, enough already. So start thinking of all the wonderful things that have come into my life and the luck. And first I went, no, I'm not lucky. Then it opened my pathways, and I said, my God, I have been so lucky in so many things. So I started to look at the bright side of my life. And within 5 minutes, I took that and I put it towards my future. And I felt better. I felt so good, then I couldn't sleep because I was so hyped up. But there it is. It's called, we need to change our perspective on things. We can look at the negative and we will be stuck and we will be miserable and we will be down, low energy. Or we can look at the other side.
That's right. And we get to choose which side we look at, just like we choose what music we listen to, we choose what TV show we watch. We get to choose what we focus on in our thoughts. Any of the other ladies, would you like to add a different perspective, Denise?
Yeah, I would also, I like to go deep. I'd like to, trust is, we learn not to trust or to trust. So it's a matter of thinking, is the trust coming from my childhood expectation? Where have I learned as a child not to trust? Who has taught me that there's no trust to be had? Was there something that happened in my life that caused me not to trust anymore? So my expectation as I grow into my life is that I can't trust people, or I can't trust things, or I can't trust anything. So I'm always going to have that expectation. So it's following that thread down to what age I was. And usually it comes from a situation that's happened with us. And how old was I? What parent was I with? Because if we go back to how our parents brought us up, they have expectations of us that we usually take on. And so if they're untrusting with the world, I become untrusting with the world because that's what I've learnt. So it's about going back there and seeing it for what it is, not judging it or anything like that, because it's never the event. It's always the emotion that I felt about how I can't untrust people, or what untrusting feels like. Because then we can see, okay, I have this expectation that I can't trust what's happening in front of me on many different levels. It's always different for everybody. So it's about getting curious about that and navigating yourself and holding yourself in love and compassion without judgment to see what's really going on. And that's where your healing will come.
Yes, and you said without judgment. I think that is really key, because we can look back on what happened and then we automatically want to assign blame. It's either my fault or their fault.
Yeah.
And when we can take that away, because that doesn't help solve the problem, does it? So when we can take that away and just see it very objectively, this was the event and this is what happened, then you're going to be able to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it's just going back to that time, because then the rest will unravel. It's such a beautiful thing, and you go, oh, that's where it happened again. And you can sit within that as well and hold yourself in that love, compassion and non-judgment, and look at it and go, oh, what was the message here for me? To trust myself, to love myself. Because if I'm trusting and loving myself, I'm trusting and loving the world, no matter what happens to me.
Absolutely. And then you create a completely different reality for yourself.
Yeah, your perspective changes.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise. Charlotte, did you want to add your perspective on trust?
Yes, I think I would say it's about not outsourcing your health. It's going to people for support, but it's understanding that ultimately you're walking alongside them, they're not lifting you off the ground. And it's funny, actually, because I was speaking to a friend in America at the weekend, and he is a high-flying businessman in economics, but he was telling me a story. When he was in his early 20s, he went to Japan and taught English. And he said he was teaching alongside this other English teacher who really loved hypnotherapy. It was his passion. So anyway, our friend, didn't believe in hypnotherapy at all, said, no, absolutely, you cannot hypnotize me. It's absolutely impossible. And so in the end, he said, okay, all right. This colleague took up the challenge. And of course, he was completely hypnotized. So he was shocked. And then he suddenly thought, okay, I believe in this. It's amazing. But the problem was the colleague, asked quite intrusive questions. So our friend said he never used hypnotherapy again, never used it again, because he thought it's just too intrusive and he didn't like it. He now believes it works, but he won't use it. But what's interesting is if he'd realized that in hypnotherapy, actually, you can't be made to do anything you actually don't want to do, then maybe he would have had more confidence to use it again in the future. And it's such an amazing modality. So I think a lot of it is understanding, research before you go to have a modality or choose a practitioner. And then, as Marina, Denise was saying, also go with your intuition as well, because it will tell you or lead you to the right place. And if it doesn't feel right, don't go. So I think, yeah, a combination of those things can help.
Definitely. You've got to feel comfortable with the person that you're dealing with, because there is a lot of vulnerability, and you need to feel safe. You need to feel heard. You need to feel comfortable at the very minimum to be with that person. So yeah, great advice there, just to really do your research, but at the end of the day, trust your own feeling.
And also coming back, because I know Deepa did say, so what can you do once you've been through that difficult situation? I think in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, when you feel fear or anxiety over an experience, then it tends to be stored in the body. So I think try and use a discipline or a modality that helps to clear that, because then you can find that you were anxious, but the anxiety can be cleared. And then you can start again and come back to your intuition without having fear.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Angelie, would you like to add your perspective?
Yeah, these ladies have already talked about some amazing things. So I think the only thing that I would just add is having a different perspective on failure. Things aren't always going to go right. And I think that a majority of us have been raised in childhood and even in some sense into adulthood and believing that failing is wrong. It's a negative feeling. It's something negative. It's something that people look down on. You can't fail at anything. If you fail at something, then you're just not meant to be doing something. But I'm really changing your perspective on what failure means, that instead of it signifying something negative or about a situation or yourself, that it's really an opportunity for you to grow and to improve and for you to hop back on that horse again and try it again with the lessons that you've learned. So really, one of the things that one of my mentors is always saying and that I always remember is fail fast forward, is fail as often as you can, as fast as you can, so you get that learning in. So by the time you really start to go into trying again, you're going to get it right. So it's really changing your mentality on what failure is and really not letting that fear and that limitation stop you from getting back up and giving it another try until you get it right.
Absolutely. And I think there's so much societal pressure going through school. It's all about you can't fail school, and there's a lot of pressure put on us, and we're conditioned, like you said, to believe that it is bad. But if we can really come back to it, if we didn't fail and then get up again and try again, we would never have learned to walk. If we take it way back to very, very beginnings, everything can be seen as a learning. And I love that you've mentioned that, Angelie. It's really important that we do change that perspective on how we see things, because whatever the pressures are that are coming from outside, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as well. And that causes a lot of stress as well. So if we can learn to not do that, and what I might ask, we've got you talking, Angelique, how do holistic practices help with stress? Because there is so much stress in our lives these days. It seems to be that it's on overdrive. So what would you say about stress and how holistic practices can help with that in our overall well-being?
Yeah, so I think that really coming from the perspective of seeing everything holistically, it really helps you to start to understand where the stress is coming from and be able to better deal with the stress from the root cause and not think that it's a symptom of something and not really know how to handle it other than putting some sort of band-aid on it and then have that thing come back again and again. I'm really looking at things holistically and really having that self awareness and that consciousness of yourself and things going on around you. It really enables you to put things through filters. I am constantly talking about putting things through filters. If my energy is low or if I'm not feeling well, I'll start putting things through filters. I'll say, oh, is it something that I ate? Am I stressed about something? What am I stressed about? Different things like that, putting things through different filters so that you can understand and get to the root cause of something so that you can take care of it at the root and not just as a symptom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no sense. You put your hand on the hot plate and it burns, and then you take it off and then it doesn't hurt anymore. If you keep putting your hand back on, of course it's going to keep hurting. So you've got to, not just treat the symptom. Absolutely. Marina, how do you help your clients when it comes to stress?
The best advice for me is to slow down to get it done faster. We are living in a very high energy and very fast world. And the faster we are, the more we spin, the more we take things on, the more we start stressing over it. And the other element of stress is not the event itself. It is not the things that stress us out, but our reactions to them. So that again comes back to our responses to our external or internal world. So we need to change our responses. But I have learned that when I slow down and start breathing, then I also help my thoughts to slow down. And when my thoughts slow down, I can stop overreacting to the things that are happening around me and take a little bit of it's truly the antidote of our world, take a different position to what is going on. And suddenly I realize, oh, maybe it's not quite that important that I get this done within the next 2 minutes. Life perhaps may continue and we all will live if I don't get this done right away. And usually life continues quite nicely. And so we learn to just stop. Enough.
Yeah. And it's breaking those patterns, isn't it?
Yes.
Of always
exactly.
doing the same thing, reacting the same way.
Yeah. And then all we're doing is we're sending all our resources out to all the things, which leaves us completely depleted. And that's why we're feeling so down and we can't handle any future stress.
Yeah. Denise, how do you help your clients with stress?
I'd like them to consider that our narrative about ourselves attracts that to ourselves. And with that, we become reactive to the external because of the narrative within us, if that makes sense. So the narrative that I have with myself is when somebody says something or do something that stresses me out is because the narrative I have within myself. So it's about knowing the narrative that I have of myself. So paying attention to my narrative. Oh, why has that affected me? Why am I triggered by that? What is it that they've said and how does that feel within me? And then just keep asking those questions of yourself, because then you'll come back to the root of it that gives you the answer. Oh, this is what I'm actually really feeling, whether it's hurt, whether it's abandonment, whatever it may be. Then I get to go, oh, okay, so where does that come? It's like I always say, follow the thread, because if I follow the thread to the root cause of my emotions, then I heal, and then I'm not impacted by or react to, and I react differently. Okay, that's not about me. That's about them then, not about me, because I've changed my narrative about myself. But I also like to say, try different breath works that calm the body, because we're not just one-dimensional. We have our mind, body, and spiritual, our electrical auras, we're everything. So it's about meeting the needs of those when we come against the stress or the overwhelm, to actually go, okay, I need to do some breath work. Oh, okay, I need to make myself a chamomile tea and go and sit under the tree. You know, it's about those things that brings me to a space where I can just calm. And you can do that in an office. You can just take yourself away from your chair and go and sit in another chair with a cup or a glass of water and just do some breath work. Whatever it takes, you're the most important being on this earth. So whatever it takes for you to bring you back into harmony with yourself. But
Absolutely. That's great advice. Just taking that little bit of a step away and doing something to calm down. That's so important. So we don't continue to cycle.
Yeah.
And then looking at, okay, your narrative, this comes back to your beliefs, your self-perception. And really that's the only thing that we have control of, is what we believe, what we think, what we feel, how we perceive. And so when we can change that, then Angela, the inner world, the outer world changes.
It's our awareness is our key. Our
awareness is key. That's exactly right.
Absolutely. And seeing ourselves, being open to see ourselves, that awareness and that curiosity to keep asking ourselves, what's going on here? And get curious about it. It's not a hard, heavy, it's just curiosity. Oh, what did I just think then? Oh, that's interesting. What does that mean?
Helps to keep the judgment out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Charlotte, do you have any tips, or do you want to share your perspective on stress when it comes to holistic being?
Yes, I actually work with a lot of businesses and also entrepreneurs. And what I notice when I go into businesses, obviously we're thinking, what an individual is thinking, is impacting on their colleagues, whether they're sitting next door to them on the desk or they're upstairs. Obviously, it impacts. So what I've noticed is, of course, it's clearing or resetting the emotional regulation, or bringing in emotional regulation. It's clearing old thought patterns, old programs and things. But sometimes it's really difficult because they're in a pressure cooker. And so it's very hard to change those patterns. So what I do is I will use breath work, as Denise said, but we'll get them to use breath work, but also oils, herbs, things like that actually lower the brainwaves, slow down the brainwaves. And then if you can decrease anxiety in that situation, then they've got more chance of catching themselves before they have an emotional outburst at their boss or something. So it's really helpful. So yes, I use a lot of different tools like that to decrease stress, decrease anxiety, and then it means that the productivity of the team, for example, can increase. And also they start to, again, as Dee says, go inside and start to recognize what they need, and also whether they're happy where they are. Are they happy in that job? Are they happy in that role? Do they want to be somewhere else? Whereas otherwise, with the stress intact, unfortunately, you often can't what you really want, your true desires.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we are stressed and overwhelmed and very emotional, the lights in the front of the brain turn off, we're operating from back here, we can't think straight. Your brain is not allowing you to think straight. So maybe now we know what we know a little bit more about chamomile, even just having a chamomile tea instead of coffee throughout the day could be one simple thing. Fantastic. All right, we're coming close to the hour now. So this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to wrap it up by having each of you just give a little bit of advice. If somebody is very new to holistic wellness, they're just starting their journey, what is one piece of advice or maybe a practical tip that you could give them? Let's start with you, Angelique, and then also just share whatever offer that you have for people that are watching this panel discussion.
Sure. Yeah. So my piece of advice would be a process that I went through when I started my own and journey into this amazing awareness is have an open mind. I think we've mentioned it before several times, but it really does take an open mind and really be curious. What is out there that you might not even be aware of that you don't know? Be open-minded, have a student mentality, be willing to learn, and especially about yourself. Be willing to learn more about who you truly are and not what society or others' expectations might have molded you into that really isn't you. So that would be my advice. And my gift that I have for everybody is a workbook called Rediscovering You. It's empowerment for the multitasking woman, where it goes into exercises of rediscovering who you are, like we were talking about, being stressed all the time and being overwhelmed. And women, we tend to have several roles and responsibilities. Sometimes we can lose ourselves. So rediscovering who you are through reconnecting with your self-identity, as well as your core values and your passion. So I'll go ahead and I guess we're putting links in the chat for that.
There'll be links below the video that people will be able to connect with each of you. Fantastic. That is fantastic, Angelique. I think pretty much every woman at some point in her life has felt lost. I know for me it was with when I had kids. Who am I? Am I just a mum? Not that just a mum, that's not the right words. I felt completely lost. And when you're in that space, that's where we tend to just spin our wheels and there's no forward progression. So that's a fantastic way to get the ball rolling. Awesome. Thank you. And I'm just going to go across as I can see you. So Charlotte, what advice would you give people who are just starting their journey, and a tip if you've got one, and then also what your offer is?
Yes, there are so many options. So tune into your intuition and choose from there. How do you start tuning into your intuition? Spend some time in nature. And I would say just start very simply with a gratitude journal, because it will bring you into the right energy space to be able to have space to connect with your intuition, and it will lead you on your path. And in terms of an offer, I'm offering 10% off an energy body scan. And please just contact me through the website and just say that you met here, and we will go from there.
Fantastic. And that is such good advice. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrations we have. And when we're in that space of feeling grateful, it does just open everything up. And if you do find that you're in a bit of a funk and you can't feel grateful for things, I've been there as well. It's like trying to do, I am grateful for my children as they're running around crazy. Appreciation is another way to get into that space. I appreciate that I have a home. I appreciate that I have food. I appreciate that the sun is shining. There's lots of little things that you can do to get yourself morphed across into that gratitude feeling if you're struggling with it. And this body scan that you're talking about, what does that mean? What's that going to give people? What does that do? Tell me a little bit more what you mean by that.
So what I do is I tune into the biofield, so the energy field around us, the aura, and see what is flowing, what areas of your body are in balance and what areas of your body are not in balance. So I do it for individuals and I also do it for businesses. So I look at how is that business functioning, how are you functioning, and then we can obviously from there balance the energy so that you can move forward.
And can you do that on Zoom?
Absolutely. I do it here, yes.
Brilliant.
I used to work in Asia, as I said, and now obviously since 2020 I haven't really travelled there. Yes, I do. I do my work on Zoom.
We live in such an incredible time, don't we? Beautiful. So if anyone wants to connect with Charlotte, you'll be able to click on the links below this video. Denise, what advice would you give someone just starting their holistic wellness journey, a tip, and what is your offer for our listeners today?
I feel simplicity, keeping it simple, and just, as others have said, is your intuition, just feeling. What's the feeling of that when I look at it? It's like when we go and pick a book, we're drawn to what it is I want to read. So it's what you're drawn to. That's the beginning of your intuition. Because there's so many things, and try, as they say, try before you buy, so to speak. So look at what feels right for you, because you might go to someone thinking that's right, but no, that just doesn't feel right. That's okay. It's not it has to be perfect the first time. My journey is all about exploration. My journey is always about uncovering who I am. So what does that look like for me? So the simplicity, the curiosity, and asking questions. Just keep asking and asking until something lands with you. And that's the intuition. Is when it lands, that's, oh, I'll go with that and try that and see where that leads me. Because it's usually when we're in the chaos that we need something and we want a quick fix, but it's actually standing back and taking it slowly, because we have the rest of our lives. And it's certainly
Absolutely.
the journey. So yeah, and that's more or less what I'm about, is taking you through the journey to find yourself, to unravel all those things that are holding you back from seeing the true value of yourself, the core of yourself. And so you can live the life that you were meant to live through your soul. So yeah, and I offer that. I offer sessions, and if, like on the page when it comes through, that I'll have my email on there. So just email me or Facebook me or Instagram me. I'm available to, chat, even just to chat, to see just to get a footing of where you need to go, because it's all about you.
Beautiful. And that's great advice, to keep it nice and simple. We live in such an incredible time now. There is a lot of information out there and it can be information overload. So keep it nice and simple. What feels good for me? You can ask for advice, you can ask for recommendations, and certainly listen to those. But at the end of the day, when you choose what you're going to do, really, I think, like you're saying, just connect in, feel what feels good, and start there. Just start.
Yeah.
Just start, I think, is the important thing as well.
Yeah,
Because,
it only takes one thing to make a change. Yeah.
yes.
And it's only one thing at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's doable and that's easy when it's one
Yeah.
thing at a time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Marina, what advice would you give to someone starting out?
Holistic health in and of itself calls usually that when someone comes to this place, there's something not working properly, something is broken, some realization or perhaps something is awakening within that person. And therefore we are driven to come to holistic health, or to this more metaphysical, spiritual world that is calling us. I know from experience that when we don't listen to that, then the voice within us will get a little bit louder and a little bit louder, and then things will start breaking down, and perhaps they come crashing down on the floor until we finally go, all right, I heard you. And once we hear it, it is the greatest joy is in starting to learn more about it. And indeed, we've said it in small increments. Whatever feels right at the time is good. If it doesn't feel right, put it aside, perhaps at another time when we are more aware and more consciously have evolved, more highly evolved, it will appeal to us. And by doing that, we are starting to work on the self. We are starting to become aware of perhaps the purpose of why we are here, which is to learn, to expand, to grow, and to give back, to give our love, our light back to others, to make this world a better place. And in reality, that's what we all want to do. We may not admit it, but in reality, we all want to do that. So my advice is connect to your heart. Think from the heart, not the head, from the heart. And slowly and enjoy the journey, because life should be enjoyed. My gift is that I have a 10-tip download on my From Frenzy to Flourishing landing page. And if you, which you must, put your name in and your information, put in that you heard this offer here, and I will give you a 45-minute relaxation session that ends on a magic hypnosis, trance.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And I love that, from frenzy to flourish. That sounds incredible.
Flourishing, yes.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think everyone wants to move away from frenzy and more towards flourishing. And what an incredible offer that you're providing for the listeners today as well. So thank you very much, Marina. That's incredible. Ladies, thank you, all of you, for being here today, for sharing your expertise, your insights, your tips. It's been an amazing conversation. For everyone watching this panel discussion, if you feel that you have resonated with one or two or all of these ladies, reach out to them, because at the end of the day, your life is your life, and you get to choose how it is, how it plays out. If what's happened up until now is not how you want it to be, then you get to change that. But you have to want to change that, and you have to take action. This is an incredible place to start, and clicking on the links below this video on the different ladies and have a little bit more of a look to see what they offer. And then, like they've all said, connect into your heart and go with what you feels right for you in this moment, and make that start. Just make that start. And then you take the next step and the next step and the next step. You don't have to know where it's going or how it's going to play out. You just have to take that start. So I encourage you all to do that and take control of your life. All right. We all deserve to be happy in this life. You're exactly right, Maureen. If we're here to be happy, we're here to enjoy life. We're here to enjoy the journey. And so do whatever you need to do to help yourself to do that. So thank you all for joining in. If anyone is interested in becoming a member of Sacred You offers these incredible panel discussions. There are tribe meetings. There are so many things within this community. It's all about empowering women to be the best version of themselves as they can be. So Sacred You has a special offer at the moment. You can join for just $1 US, and that will give you access, 2 weeks access into the entire Sacred You community, where you can just experience everything that it has to offer. And then from there, you are able to sign up for a membership, and we're offering 50% off on the membership as well at the moment. So if you're interested in that, click on the link below this video on how to get your membership started with Sacred You. Thank you again, ladies. It has been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed our chat today.
Ooh.